Good evening. Buonasera. Bonsoir. Yo estet. Buenas noches. G'day. I don't know too many more, so if I've missed your language, it's because I'm not versed in all the languages. Hello. So Heather will be joining me now. Diana.
Hey! Hi, sweetie. How are you?
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I don't know if Canadians have a special term for good evening, but I've just done a few rounds of different languages, so good evening.
Good evening. I don't know. That's all I know. Good evening, eh? That's Canadian.
That'll do.
And it's afternoon here.
Yes, of course. So good afternoon, eh?
Yes. Thank you. Did you have a good day?
It's been a really good day. Yeah, lovely day. The babies are in bed. They wanted to stay up and say hi to you. They were desperate to see you, but I promised they could watch it tomorrow. So
right, and give them hugs from me.
Absolutely. So I wanted to start with a little bit of housekeeping before we dive in.
Sure.
Just because we've had some feedback on previous lives, and that's why I've got my serious glasses on.
Okay.
Firstly, I want to let everyone know, because we're hosting the live, we can't change anything about the order of me being above you, unfortunately, because what it means is that a lot of people's comments will kind of scroll up above you instead of me, and I know we'd rather it the other way around. But what I can advise to everyone, and I will do this as well so that it's done correctly for saving in future, is just tap your screen to make sure that it drops all the comments down to at least 1 or 2, and then it doesn't take up as much of the screen. So I'll do a little test, make sure mine is correct. Oh gosh, I'm doing all sorts. There we go. And what I can see is 2 comments, so hopefully everyone does the same.
I'm just going to test something here too. If I lose you, oh, cool. All right, good. I was just testing that rear view thing. So
I know I tried that as well, and then everyone could see my, relative messed up lounge room.
Yeah. Cecilia, hi. I saw Morella. I saw Francesco. I saw Jane. I saw a lot of people. So, hi, guys.
I also wanted to so I mentioned about we save the live for 24 hours on Instagram. We also are recording these for posterity to save on YouTube. They'll be on our website. But what that means is, to anyone who's joining, please just be aware that whatever you comment will be kept alive for as long as it stays online. So just be mindful when you're commenting. And
Rebecca, hi.
Thing is, tonight we've just got 45 minutes. We'd normally hope for an hour, but we've got tight schedules. So we're going to go with 45 minutes and cram in as much about Italian hand as we can.
Hi.
We are aware that you go for it. I'm just going to talk for a minute. There's an issue when demonstrating, switching between the front-facing camera and people having to try and demonstrate, and that it causes a mirror effect if we're using the front camera. That won't be an issue tonight because Heather and I are just having a chat. It's not going to be anything particular about demonstrating. So we won't have that issue with mirror in reverse, but I just want to let everyone know that we are aware of it. We will be working to make sure that our setups are correct for future ones if we are doing any demonstration. And as you all know, we're here to talk about Italian hand tonight. We are hoping that Heather will join us here in Europe in September, fingers crossed. But, given the situation, we can't really make any comment on that at this stage. But if you are keen to learn, I just want to let everyone know that they can get in touch with you personally, via IG, Messenger, whatever, if they want to take on some online study after being inspired this evening from your chat. So we're going to be talking tonight as if I know nothing about Italian hand, which is pretty much the truth. Okay. But I did notice, I wanted to kind of start on the topic that in one of your descriptions for the poetic pen, it does start by saying the study of Italian hand is the key to unlocking all other script hands and will free your hand with the pointed pen, which sounds amazing. So, I mean, that could be a good place as any to start. What do you think about that? Obviously, that's, yeah.
Well, I absolutely mean it. I wrote it, right? So, yeah, I absolutely mean it. And Italian hand gets a bit of a bad rap. It gets a bad rap from people who really love Italic and from people who really love English Roundhand. And so they look at Italian hand as a bit of a hybridized thing, and it gets a bad rap because Italic people don't like to see these clubbed ascenders and descenders. And the English Roundhand people don't like to see their script looking so almost disjointed. However, Italian hand dramatically lightens your touch because you have to totally change the way you think when you do it. You can't just approach your paper as if, okay, every downstroke is going to have shade, because Italian hand is going to mess that up. And it's sort of that messing up of thinking that really has you pull back and take a breath while you're doing it. So it's absolutely, it transforms your thinking, and it helps you analyze every other script while keeping this playfulness, this exuberance and joyfulness that really only Italian hand has in this way. Like the practitioners of Italian hand weren't taking themselves so seriously that they couldn't play and have fun. And I think that that is why it's such a great beginning hand for pointed pen people. It's a great bridge hand for broad edge people who want to kind of enter into the pointed pen world. This is a great way to do it. So I love it. It's officially a dead hand. It's not one that's highly practiced and highly looked at. And kind of my mission in life is getting it looked at and getting it recognized again. And I think there's a lot of people now that like it and are using it. So yeah.
Because I think I was commenting the other day when I was having a look at it. To me, it looks a little bit like a combination, like you said, between that broad edge and round hand, but also a little bit of Spencerian, so that lightness of touch, a little bit of geometry. There's that, it's got that elegance to it that's, it's almost somewhere between the ovals of round hand and the angularness of Italic, and it's this beautiful smash in between and very delicate. So
absolutely, it's considered a semi-angular hand. So you're describing it correctly. So it's not exactly rounded, it's not exactly angular, and it's not as methodical and systematic that you will get in Spencerian and even in English Roundhand. There's a lot more of you that can come to the page. Okay. This is handwriting, so some of your own quirks and some of your own personality are going to come out in this script. It's wonderful.
Right. Which I think is what a lot of people are looking for as well. When they're approaching a script, they do want to feel like, which to me, I think anyone who approaches a script, it is going to be unique to them, but to be able to see it and not feel like that pressure to conform so much to one script is a really nice
absolutely. Yeah.
Lovely. So I guess it could be nice to move into talking a little bit more about the history, and you mentioned the practitioners who were more playful with it and how they came to be using it, and it'd be really great to hear where it's and why.
Sure. Sure, absolutely. Well, when we say Italian hand, we're talking not only a region, so we're not only talking about Italy, we're also talking about Italic. So when you merge those two terms together, keeping in mind that this represents Italic, it also represents Italy, and it also goes all over Europe. It goes like there's Dutch practitioners, there's Spanish, there's French, and English. So every region kind of had their spin on it. Sort of starts in 1560 with Cresci's work. And by the way, I want to give a huge shout out to Sybil and Sybil's site and what you guys are doing with the Pointed Pen Society and kind of pulling it all together and kind of having Sophie's site there. When I started kind of trying to put this history together back in 2011, her site wasn't there. No. So I had these books. I was piecing together things, and I was consulting who I think is the greatest living historian of this hand, and that's Don Marsh. And Don Marsh you can find on Facebook. I believe his Facebook link is Don Marsh Design. And Don is a lettering artist, typographer. He's an author. And his take on Italian hand is to draw it and then vectorize it, where my take is a calligrapher and I want to write it. So between the two of us, we started comparing notes and piecing together history. But now that Sophie's site is up there, a lot of...
And the site that you're talking about, just to confirm, is the Pennavolans site.
Pennavolans, absolutely.
Yeah.
And now that is there, any resource that I'm telling you today, well, maybe not some of them, but a lot of them that I'm going to point to, you can just go to her site, look up that year, and you'll find what I'm talking
it's
about.
Fantastic. So. And I think that's the other thing to say tonight. While we're not demonstrating, you are going to be giving, and I did mean to say at the start, do have your notes, or whatever way you want to take some notes down, because Heather is going to be giving us some really great tips of where to go to research this script and find out how to start yourself. And Sybil's site is a really great, she's got great historical information there as well. So yeah.
Oh, it is. And you know what, if that was the only site you used and just went into her, like, she's linking you to the manuscript, she's linking you to these places, and you will never get out of, like, you will never be able to absorb just what she has now.
Yes.
So there's more than enough out there. One of the questions we had, I think Cecilia brought up, was, why isn't this documented? Why isn't there a step-by-step approach to it? And there really isn't. There really isn't somebody, and there's no clear path of telling you how to do that. And part of that is, when it was evolving, that wasn't the method of being instructed. Really around the 1860s, when copybooks came out, and definitely systems of penmanship, Spencerian systems and things like that, everything was analyzed and even overanalyzed. So pen angle, position, posture, seating, breathing, all of those things were really articulated on the paper. But back in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, you were under the tutelage of a writing master who carefully guarded secrets. And if you were wealthy enough to pay for his advice and get it that way, he would maybe give you that advice. But copybooks at that time were maybe a paper pamphlet. And they were meant to be, you know, you look at it, you use it, and it's like, why would I keep this forever? Yeah. Because you're going to learn that system and then get rid of it. Like, you're just going to learn that method. But we really start in 1560 with Giovanni Cresci. I'm going to flip the camera. Oh, is that good? We'll try. We'll try this.
There you go.
Okay. Let's see what happens if I can.
That's what I was.
I might need. All right.
Love.
There. Can you see that?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So this is Giovanni Cresci. This is 1560. And if you look at the ascenders and the descenders, you're going to see that slight club shape, that extra blot of ink. And let me tell you that already this is drawing heat. When Italian hand is looked at in this method, where when Italic is seen with these blots of ink, the kind of the critique it's getting is called bulbous and degenerate. So people are looking at this and thinking this is there's already a problem here. When I look at it, I see nothing but incredible beauty. You see the simplicity of this letter form. And I want you to be aware of Italian hand as far as seeing it as a lowercase alphabet. It's really the complexity of the uppercase that starts to really change, and eventually we completely lose it when we obscure it that much. Okay. So let me just pull that back. So is that clear so far?
Yes.
Okay, so as you go forward in history, I'm going to give you another, we'll blot that. So I'm going to give you another place to look. This is Martin Billingsley, and again, Sybil's got this on her site, the Pen of Volans. This is 1618, and this is from a book called The Pen's Excellency. And you can see the really fine letters. And first of all, I'm going to focus on those K's, Kate, for you. Okay. And one thing I want to tell anybody who's looking, if you want to really analyze this script, you look at what they play with the letter K, and all the way through, it doesn't matter who the penman is, they really employ a lot of fun and playfulness with the letter K. And again, this alphabet is very much about the uppercase. Yes. If you look at the P, and if you look at the descender right at the bottom there, you see a lateral club starting to emerge there. So you see a real lateral stroke, and it's getting heavier. And it's really as you go forward in history that the weight of the shade starts to change, and it eventually merges forward into English Roundhand. Oops, there's the uppercase, and nothing spectacular happening with the uppercase at this point. So let me just flip. So you got back view there. Now we're going to stay in Italy here. And by the way, the first image I showed you was a wood engraving. The rest are copper plate engravings. And once you change to a copper plate engraving, you get a more clear line and a clear picture. And there's also a little bit more playfulness that happens with the stroke. But look at the Q there. You can just see the beauty. And by the way, there's a highly flourished border that surrounds this letter Q. This is an Italian example from 1620. It's Leopardo Antonozzi. And let me tell you, whenever you see flourishes like this, historians who are not necessarily kind to flourishing will tell the student or tell the onlooker to expect bad lettering. Well, when I look here, I look at just the complete beauty of that lettering, and I don't see it as bad. I actually don't even see the flourishing as detracting. I see it as a whole of something that looks really beautiful together. But again, you see the difference in weight between the ascenders and the lowercase. You can see a high compression of the lowercase as well. And we're starting to join the script. So this is handwriting. And this was meant to be done rapidly. So we're trying to increase the speed of Italic when we're doing this.
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to be too shaky. I'm going to go forward a little bit. We're going to talk about the tool. Okay. So one of the questions that Cecilia brought up was the tool. And initially it was done with a quill. It was done with a quill, and what the writing master kind of kept to himself and did not necessarily want the student to know was how he precisely cut that quill. So how he cut the quill would influence how the shape of the letters took form. Let me just flip back and put this down for a second. Don't get me.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to mention was we as modern day practitioners are using a pointed pen to do this script, where they would have done a quill that was either oblique cut, broad edge cut, or pointed, and very, very pointed. There is some evidence that that slit, the center slit in the middle, was slightly off, which would sort of account for the weights of those shades that are turning around.
Yeah.
Now, one of the questions Cecilia asked is, what is the tool that we can use to make this script? And you can use a pointed pen. I use a pointed pen in a straight holder, and I use a medium flexible nib, not a highly flexible nib. You can also use a very fine broad edge, so like a Mitchell 6. I've been doing a lot of experimenting with a Mitchell 6. You can also hone the end of that Mitchell 6 with some emery cloth or an emery board, and start to point it just a little bit and get a lot of kind of playful results that way.
Wow, okay.
Esterbrook makes a nib called the Judge's Quill, and that has a little bit of an edge to it as well, and you can play around with that. So you can absolutely use an edge pen. I don't, for the most part. I use a pointed pen. The nib I use is a Hunt 21. But so far, you with me?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Okay. So should I flip forward historically a little bit and keep going towards script? Okay. So let's go forward.
Big thing, all the examples.
All right.
Yeah.
This is Edward Cocker, 1660. And by the way, look at this little guy he puts up there, because part of his thing is his work is highly flourished. You see a French cadelle at the beginning with that word fellowship. So when you see these really interlaced works, that's a French influence, and really those French influences pull forward into our English roundhand. But look at the shape of the descender, sorry, the ascenders now. They're quite more pronounced. They're a lot more pronounced. Yeah. The letter forms themselves are quite joined, and, you know, again, heavy compression. So look at things like the N when you're analyzing the script as well, and see how tightly compressed that is. That's our good friend, Edward Cocker. And again, you can go to Sybil's site. Sorry, did you have a question? Are you good?
Yeah, so this is, we've moved toward 100 years, isn't it? That's the first example.
Yes, yeah. So as a mercantile hand, as a handwriting, this had almost 400 years of continued use. So of all the pointed pen script hands, this one's been around longer than any of them. Not well known, but it's been around a long time.
Yeah.
Now here is, 400 years. Here is William Elder. This is 1691 in England, and I want you to look at those ascenders. Look at the shape of the blot of ink now. First of all, look at the lowercase g there and see how that is kind of encroaching in on your negative space. So penman to penman, they would have a different way of achieving that weight and getting that weight. And there's different weights that show up throughout history. Look at the compression of the M and the N.
Yeah.
Look at the K, Kate. Do you like it yet?
Early.
It's just so pretty. But those loops are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Uppercase is still nothing spectacular. There is a little bit of the reverse shading that's happening in the uppercase. But it's not as wild as what it ends up going forward. So let me flip forward. Sorry about the window view there, guys, but that's Canada right now in April. All right, we're going to flip forward a bit. And this is William Brooks, and this is 1717 in England. And I want you to see, again, look at the script here. If you look at the word humble, you see how the shade is progressing even further downward. We're really we really are approaching our English roundhand style. You again see the compression. You see the weight on the M in humble is at the bottom of the first two strokes, but not at the bottom of the exit of the second. Those are of the final stroke. It's very easy to do that. It looks complex. And if I put it down here, if I can, it's directed to the ladies of Great Britain. And let me tell you, this hand is considered extraordinarily feminine. It's considered so easy that even the women could do it. So it was a little bit of, you know, degrading to what they were saying. Yeah. And women were given these moral maxims to write out so they could behave themselves and be proper women. But the script itself is spectacular. So I'm going to flip forward a little bit more to the universal penman, and this is what I want you to look at with the universal penman. So see the word falsehood is beautifully written. You now look at the shapes of the ascenders and how that club shape is descending even further. Yes. But it's also being contrasted with English roundhand. So anybody who owns a copy of the Universal Penman, my challenge to you is to go back and look at how many pages that, yeah, there you go, that Italian hand is actually put on the same page with English roundhand. So as a contrast and to almost act as if it's italicized. So they're drawing attention to certain parts of the hand. We've got the beautiful flourishing. And again, at the bottom, we go back to beautiful Italian hand. And what is so valuable about the Universal Penman is there's many pages that you can go to that contrast or show English roundhand side by side. So you get a good picture of the weights of the differences in weights.
Even just for exemplars that you've showed now, it's becoming much easier to sort of identify in the book which is which. Yeah, which is which. Yes, yeah.
So when I started out, this was my only study aid. George Bickham's Penmanship Made Easy. It's about a $8 Amazon find. And very clearly in it, you have pages like this, that you have roundhand. Let me see. I got the wrong page open. That wasn't good planning. There we go. So there is Italian hand on this page. And look at Arabella and Beatrice. So what you have are standard English roundhand caps really being combined with our beautiful Italian hand. And there are pages that contrast the two together, like this one. Here we go. So on one side, you've got roundhand. The other side, you have Italian. So you can see the difference in weight.
Yeah.
And
compression and yeah.
Exactly. And compression and tightness and spacing. Look at the D on Thursday. Yeah. And there's just like, one is so rigid and the other one just plays. That's why I called my workshop the Poetic Pen, because there's just such a beautiful singing and playfulness that happens. Somebody, I don't see who, commented that Ornamental Penmanship by Tompkins and Milnes is also a great resource. And we'll flip right to
everything to hand, I tell you, anytime.
Look And again, that's open for you, Kate. Look at the K.
I know.
I mean,
Never say it again. I'll never say I hate it.
It's your best friend now, right? I look for opportunities to flourish a K because it's just one of the most beautiful letters. And that's Tompkins and Milnes, 1777. And it's really when we go forward into the 1800s that we really start to lose the hand and we start to see things happen to it that aren't nice.
This pull back from the page that you're at. Is that the title page or is that the page that you're on there? Is that the ornamental penmanship?
Yeah, this is from Ornamental Penmanship by Tompkins and Milnes. So this is the actual book, if I can get it up there. Ornamental Penmanship by Tompkins and Milnes. And anybody listening needs to petition Dover Books to reprint this one, because if you look on eBay or Book Finder, this is an astronomical price at the moment. But I don't.
We just all email them or tweet them. Instagram.
Yeah, let's do a mass email and petition that this one gets re-released because. It's crazy. Wonderful, wonderful resource.
Okay.
So let me flip forward a little bit.
And the one, to confirm, the one before that was the Penmanship Made Easy?
Yeah, Penmanship Made Easy by George Bickham. If you only buy one book, this is the one. Again, because it
was the Universal Penman, right?
Yeah, there's little bits about it from the Universal Penman, but the Universal Penman can be a little bit more overwhelming because it's so big. Yeah. This one is more compact. All right, so here's another Dover recommend. This is Ornamental Calligraphy by George Becker. And about 1800s-ish, yeah, 1854. So I'm going to hold up this example. And once again, on the top, we have our beautiful Italian hand. And on the bottom, you have his version of English Roundhand, or like a very heavily shaded, he's calling it large text hand, against Italian hand. So again, you see the difference in weight and you see the difference in compression, and that shade is sliding all the way down. So we no longer have just the delicate touch, the delicate touch of ink. We have a more heavy hand.
This was 17, sorry.
Sorry?
What year was this one, sorry?
1854.
Oh, sorry, 1854.
Yep, and this is USA. And also when you look at this, there's no caps, right? We still have the focus on the lowercase. When we look at his version of the capitals, they're getting a little bit confusing. So we're starting to lose our connection to the italic. They're getting much more fluid, much more scripty, much more flourishy. I still like his. The shades are in reverse position in many cases, so they're a little bit more complicated to look at. But again, if you can't get that original book, all of these alphabets are in this book, Ornamental Calligraphy by George Becker, inexpensively through Dover. Okay? But this is what happens with Becker and with even the Zenarian authors. You start to see this word, Italian, being put in front of decorative alphabets that are shaded oddly. So what happens is a classification happens because of strange shading in the typographic world anyway. So this alphabet has absolutely no connection to italic. It has no connection to what we saw before. The shades are weird. We're going to call it Italian. And this is part of the problem of why Italian hand really drops out of use. So I don't blame Becker, but I'm not happy with him for doing it. Here is an example from New Zenarian alphabets. Italian double pen lettering. And again, the shades are weird. This has absolutely no connection to italic, but we're going to call it Italian. And again, we're losing the distinction of what it was. I'll give you one more of this. I could go on and on with this. But here is Italian square top. How do you like that X?
Oh my
it's just entirely without nuance, entirely, I don't know, it looks like it's from an old computer from the 60s or something. Yeah, this is what happens to Italian hand. We really start to lose what it was. And there's one other thing that happens with Italian hand, and I'll flip forward, is the New Spencerian authors, or the New Spencerian Compendium, really does some heavily ornate forms of their letter forms, but they're combining it with a slightly compressed and shaded Spencerian. And then when I turn the page, you see absolutely dizzying letters, and we're back to a highly, you know, really more identified as Spencerian script than anything else. So when you lose the lowercase, you lose the whole alphabet. Yeah. So really it starts to drop out of use at this point. Spencerian is taken over as the main hand. And W.E. Dennis, I love, but in 1914, he came out with this example of Italian capitals. And other than just the reference there in the title, there's no lowercase at all here. No. And we just have these dizzying capitals. So no like I've said, it's really the nuances of the uppercase that, the nuances of the lowercase that define the alphabet. You do way more writing with your lowercase. And when you just see it as these dizzying, twisted, reverse shaded letters, it really loses a lot of its relevance as handwriting and as a quick mercantile script. Now, I'll end it with my most important reference, which is this one. So I'm going to show you the lowercase here. So again, we're on K. I didn't do that on purpose, but it's there just for fun. But here it is. That is John Ayres, and this reference is from 1698. And again, on Sybil's site, the Penavolan site, it is a tutor to penmanship, and there's his uppercase. And probably 90% of what I do is based on this example from John Ayres in 1698. And I combine it a little bit with George Bickham and Joseph Champion. So there, I did that as quickly as I could and hopefully didn't lose anybody along the way. Amazingly. Yeah. Was that clear? Are there any questions about that? Basically, it comes from the Italic. It moves forward. English Roundhand takes over. When it comes to North America, it's Spencerian that really knocks it out of the park and takes over. And when it's only seen as capitals, you really lose the beauty and kind of the speed and delicacy of what can happen in that lower case. And I think that's what Sybil does say in her, when looking at the variations on her site, is to take them back into context. So she's taken them out of context to show you how to deconstruct and reconstruct them. But then putting them back into the context, you need to see the capitals with the script to actually, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And in its earlier form, the capitals are kind of like, the further you go towards Italic, they're a little bit rigid. But then they get that playfulness in the late 1600s into the mid 1700s where you can just play. And that's what I really like to tell my students is the possibilities and the playfulness that you can do with this hand are just unbelievable. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's been so great. Thank you so much. I think everyone's been giving lots of hearts, lots of wows. Amazing. The exemplars have been brilliant. So thank you so much for taking the time to go through that with us. Are you kidding? My pleasure. My pleasure. We really have all our fingers crossed that we'll be able to learn from you in person. Yeah. Yeah. Is there any other questions anyone has before we sign out tonight? And Heather's got to rush off, so if we'll give it a couple of minutes. By the way, here I'll give you one plug too for Cornelison's in England. That walnut ink with your pointed pen, walnut ink on any type of paper will give your Italian hand just such a dancing look. Absolutely beautiful. So you can play with that a little bit. And lovely. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions about anything I said, you're free to email me, and hopefully I'll be in Europe again to teach it and share it there. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's just saying big thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. And Cecilia as well. What script does Heather suggest to study before taking on Italian hand? And I know that you said it was a great starting point, also a bridging one from a broad edge. Is there any other scripts that you'd recommend to lead into that? So being really selfish as a teacher, I would love it if they didn't. I would love it if they came with just a blank slate. However, what I'll say that if you are coming from a background of Italic, that is only ever going to help this hand. If you're coming from a background of English Roundhand, you're really going to, in the beginning, struggle a little bit to get the thinking that comes with Italian hand. And what I tell my students is, like, we can work with you at whatever point, even absolute beginner. For a beginner who's just wanting to dive in, this is the perfect one to start with, because you do not build up hand fatigue like you do with English Roundhand, because these shades are so moderate and they're mindfully placed. So it's not like you're dragging ink down all the time. You're just delicately placing ink. If you're a broad edge person that wants to dive into pointed pen, this is the great place to start here, because something about it is going to be familiar. You're going to recognize the Italic undercurrent with it. So
okay, brilliant. And I think there's one last question. If people can't make it to IAMPETH, where can they learn with you at the moment? In the meantime, should they just contact you directly? I do teach it privately. I'm going to update my blog with some other tutorials and probably try and put some concise things on there so people can look at books. But remember this book. So if you buy one book, just this book, I think somebody has bought it while we've been chatting.
Oh, really? Yeah. So what I would say is
penmanship made easier.
Yeah, penmanship made easy. One of the greatest benefits that we can say, and not look at the copybooks and saying, oh, I wish they had told us how they did this, but utilize and leverage that mystery. Leverage the fact that, hey, how did they do this? Let me experiment and let me figure out how I can do this and bring it to my own writing. I think that's one of the greatest gifts, that we turn off the urge to have somebody instruct to the nth degree exactly how to do it, and you think and process this for yourself. And that power of observation and thinking through is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, to analyze a script and to look at it and to play. And I think that as a flourishing artist, that's why I love this hand so much, because I look at it and I say, hey, these guys obviously did not take themselves overly serious in every little jot and tittle that they put on the page, right? So,
which is refreshing. And the nice thing through our chat tonight is so many people saying it's their favorite hand, it's their favorite, so there are people practicing this, and hopefully we'll broaden that and we'll all jump in and do some Italian hand together.
Oh, that's so awesome. And I love that they're doing it and they like it. And I always tell my students to do it and share it and put it on your envelopes and do it, get it out there and get it recognized. It does not deserve to be a dead hand. It deserves recognition. So
fantastic. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you for taking time with us. I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. And I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Awesome. So ciao, everybody. I hope we answered everything. Thank you so much for doing this.
A pleasure. See you soon. Ciao, ciao.
See you. Ciao, ciao. Yeah, bye-bye.